The mission for DTV this year was clear: educate ourselves about energy and how to conserve it. But in order to do that, we had to leave the school behind and get out and on the road and start learning.
What better place to start than here at our own school? Aaron Snyder took a look at the school's energy bills to see what's going on and what we can do to help. Guys, wait up!
260,000 square feet full of nothing but students, teachers, and books.
That's what people often think of when they think about a school. Now take away all the teachers and students and everything else crammed into the school, and think of it this way.
260,000 square feet full of nothing but lights, computers, fans, machines, freezers, and ovens. To operate every one of these consists of using energy, and DHS by itself is spending over $20,000 a month. And it's not just the high school. The District of Davison is spending $1 million a year just on energy costs alone. Just to break that down a little for you, last year at this time we used 318,677 kilowatt hours of energy in the high school.
This bill is our energy usage and the number we're targeting. It's the number we plan to reduce, but first, let's take a look into why exactly we're doing this.
So now that we know what we gotta do, it's time to get started. While we pack up the van, take a look at these tips to help you save energy around the school. Cameras?
Check!
Batteries?
Check!
All right, guys, let's hit the road.
At our first stop, we're going to find out about the world's largest growing problem, the energy crisis.
It's common knowledge that the world is powered by fossil fuels. But did you know that one day these fuel sources might run out? And that's only part of the energy crisis. Andrew Gerber has more.
For the past 200 years, the world has been changing into an industrial society. Manufacturing and machines dominate the landscape. And now, increased technology in huge developing countries are further adding to our insatiable need for energy.
The world is on the brink of an energy crisis.
The first part of our energy crisis has to do with demand. The United States has been the top consumer for energy for almost 100 years, but now large countries like China and India are becoming more industrialized. That means more cars, more lights, and more energy being used. China has recently become the second largest consumer of oil in the world, and like many countries, they are growing more and more each year. Also, as technology expands, so does energy usage. For instance, in 1970 there were only 200 million cars in the world. In 2010, that number jumped up to almost 750 million. Another example is that there are more than 2.4 billion cell phone users and more than 1,000 new customers are added every minute. Things like cell phones, personal computers, and microwaves weren't around your home 30 years ago. Now all over the world, these items are being plugged in and are using up lots of energy. Countries will continue to industrialize, and technology will also keep expanding, making the demand for energy increase along with it. Most of the world feels this ever-expanding need for energy with fossil fuels, and this leads us to the second part of the energy crisis. A fossil fuel is any combustible organic material which can be pulled from the earth and converted into energy. The most common ones are oil, coal, and natural gas. Fossil fuels are formed by decaying material that decomposes over millions of years.
The problem is, just like every natural resource, there's only a limited supply of them. One day, we're gonna run out.
Currently, we use 31 billion barrels of oil a year. At this rate, if we don't continue to find new sources of oil, then eventually it could all dry up. If oil starts running out and our demand keeps rising, prices will skyrocket, causing turmoil all around the world. The need for fossil fuels has already led to conflicts in the Middle East, and considering our shaky relationships with oil-producing nations like Iraq, Iran, and Venezuela, an oil shortage would surely lead to more conflicts. The other problem with fossil fuels is its effects on the environment. When fossil fuels are burned to create energy, CO2 emissions are carried into our atmosphere. These CO2 emissions thicken our atmosphere, which trap in UV rays, creating the global warming effect. Global warming has caused the Earth's average climate to rise, which is melting the ice caps, causing ocean levels to rise, and beginning to cause major problems to the Earth. The world's energy supplies is running out. As the world grows and expands, the need for energy increases. The continued reliance on fossil fuels will lead to conflicts over oil use with other countries and serious problems with our environment. This trend does not look like it's about to slow down.
As time goes on, we need to change. The energy crisis is real, and it isn't about to go away.
And the energy crisis is only getting worse. Now that we know what the problem is, it's time to find out where the energy comes from.
For our next location, we'll head over to the massive structures that create our energy.
Everyone needs energy to power something, and usually we just flip on a switch, fill up a tank, or plug something in, never thinking about where our energy comes from. DTV's own Hannah Hall lets us know where we get our power and how harmful it can be.
Energy is all around us, but in order to make it useful to us today, we must rely on many different kinds of resources. From coal to wind power all come together to form one final purpose. Many people believe that coal and gasoline are the only producers of energy, but that is not the case. Here's a breakdown of all our energy sources. 40% of our energy comes from petroleum, which is used to fuel our cars. 23% of our energy comes from natural gases, which are used for many things like heating and cooking. 23% of our energy also comes from coal, which we use for many things including electricity and heat. 8% of our energy comes from nuclear energy. Nuclear energy is mainly used for electricity. Finally, only 7% of our energy comes from renewable energy, such as sunlight, water, and wind.
Now you know what kinds of energy we use, but do you know how it's created and what it costs us?
Typically, the electricity we use in our homes is generated at a large, government-regulated power plant. These plants use nuclear reactions, burning fossil fuels such as coal, oil, and natural gas. After these are created, they are added to a connection of power lines called a grid. Then we buy the electric company's power whenever we turn on a light switch or lamp. What many people don't know about today is where exactly the resources we use to create energy comes from. The majority of our energy comes from petroleum. 50% of our petroleum comes from right here in North America. OPEC countries such as Nigeria, Saudi Arabia, and Venezuela supply 30% of our petroleum. We use petroleum here today for things such as gasoline, grease, and tar. In order for oil to be used, it must be pumped out of the ground or ocean. To some, this seems like an easy, harmless way to obtain petroleum, but in reality, it causes many problems. When oil is spilled in the ocean, it initially spreads into the water, impacting the inhabitants of the ocean for the worst. Not only is the marine life harmed from these spills, but it also affects many things on shore. When there's an oil spill, the oil from the ocean can leak out and interact with our groundwater, therefore polluting not only the environment but also contaminating the water we drink from. Natural gases are usually found in pore spaces of sedimentary rock. Natural gas is a major feed source for fertilizer and also used as fuel. But in order to obtain natural gas, we must inject water, salt, and a mixture of hazardous chemicals deep underground to break open rock formations from which the natural gas is extracted. This process is called hydraulic fracturing, and it can ultimately contaminate our drinking water, endanger our health, and depreciate the value of our property. Coal can be found by mining and mountaintop removal. Removing the tops of mountains is a very harmful process for our environment today. Not only does mountaintop removal destroy many of the rivers around them, but also the mountain debris dumped in valleys and streams pollutes our drinking water because of the heavy metals such as arsenic and selenium. Studies show that people that live near the mountains, where we extract coal from, suffer from higher rates of heart, lung, and kidney disease caused by these mountaintop removals. Nuclear energy can cause nuclear explosions that produce radiation. The nuclear radiation harms the cells of the body, which can make people sick or can even kill them. Nuclear reactors also have waste disposal problems. Reactors produce nuclear waste products, which emit dangerous radiation. A typical nuclear reactor will produce 20 to 30 tons of high-level nuclear waste yearly. A more harmless way to produce energy that can cause less damage to our environment is the little thing we like to call renewable energy. This energy source comes from natural resources such as sunlight, wind, and rain. Some main forms of renewable resources include wind power, hydropower, and solar energy. There are many pros to using renewable energy, such as being able to use it repeatedly without it depleting, having it cause no role to global warming, no polluting emissions, low-cost applications, and more importantly, it saves many people's health. So the next time you go to flip on a light or start a car, remember where your energy comes from. Hannah Hall, DTV News.
Knowing about energy makes you think about things a lot differently, but we're not even close to being done. We have a few more spots to hit.
Our next couple stops take us away from fossil fuels and a look into the cleaner world of renewable energy. Renewable future will never run out and causes no pollution. Our next location, solar power.
Using the sun's natural light as energy has been on the mind of scientists worldwide. Katie Poinkowski takes an inside look at the solar power. You may be shocked to find out where this energy is being put to use at.
There are many sources of energy, but by far the most important of these is the huge ball of fire right above us, the sun. The sun gives energy to the entire Earth, and with the development of technology such as solar panels, we can harness this energy and use it to our advantage. Solar panels work by absorbing the sun's rays into special solar cells that turn the rays into electricity. The electricity is used to power appliances and homes, and any unused electricity is released into the power grid that supplies electricity to all of the neighboring homes and businesses. On days that the solar power does not produce enough electricity for the appliances, the electricity can be drawn from the power grid, so there is no risk of being unable to power appliances. The cost of putting solar panels on your home can be a pricey but beneficial investment.
Depending on what type of system you put in, you could probably start out at about $3,500. That would be for an air panel installed on a house, and then you could go up to maybe $35,000. And the solar hot water is usually going to pay itself off in savings in the neighborhood of maybe 10 to 15 years. If it's a 20-year, what we call payback period, that's around 5%, and that's more than you're going to get most places right now making investments.
And there are some great uses of solar power right here in Michigan. Solar panels on homes are a growing trend, and Brian Dickens of Pigeon, Michigan is a user and advocate of this energy source.
It's sized to pretty much meet about a quarter or a little less of my annual needs. But even today, my meter is just about spinning backwards. Okay. And for us, it's also advantageous because of the current federal tax incentive for 30% of the complete cost of the project.
So even though initial costs can be high, the return on investment is well worth it. Solar power, like all other energy sources, has its ups and downs. Some of the benefits include that generating solar energy is silent. There are no noisy generators, power plants, or turbines. Solar energy puts out no pollution and is not harmful to the environment. And finally, the energy is free and endless, which pays for itself over time. However, the negative aspects of using solar power include high installation costs, because the solar cells can be very pricey, and getting them installed is another added cost. Also, solar panels only generate power during daylight hours, and productivity can be affected by things such as pollution and weather. Finally, we cannot store solar energy, and all excess must be released into the energy grid. Solar panels are popping up all over the place, but right here in Midland, Michigan, a minor league baseball team is taking advantage of the sun.
Obviously, to reduce energy costs, there's an offset to our energy usage because we're generating some of our own power. Our partners at Dow Corning came to us. Dow Corning is based here in Midland and is a leader in solar technology, and they came to us with an idea to use solar power in a small way here at the ballpark. So our project here is more of a demonstration in a really visible venue to let people know what the potential could be. The bigger focus of it is to make people aware of what the potential is and that we're working on that potential right here in Michigan.
Solar power is one of the fastest growing and most readily available sources of energy, and it will prove to be one of the biggest factors in solving the current energy crisis.
The sun is our largest source of untapped energy, and Michigan companies like Dow Chemical and Hemlock Semiconductor are working on making solar power more practical. While we make a quick pit stop, check out these tips on how to save some energy in your home.
Hello everyone, I'm Ron McNeely and I'm bringing you your second set of energy tips for Operation Energy. First, use reusable water bottles rather than plastic water bottles. While you're driving, accelerate slowly and brake slowly to save more gas. Then, you can wash your clothes in cold water, and then after washing them in cold water, try line drying them rather than using a dryer. Well, that wraps up your energy tips for now. I'll be back later with even more energy tips for Operation Energy.
You ready, guys? Let's get back to our trip.
Yeah!
Solar power is one source of alternative energy, but at our next location, we'll take a look at a different form of natural power, the wind.
Wind is all around us. Why not use it for power?
Kelly takes a look at one small school that dared to take a leap to wind energy, and it changed the whole community forever.
When we were all little, we learned that wind is the movement of air. Imagine using all of this natural power and turning it into energy. And that's exactly what windmills do. The giant blades turn in the air, spinning the rotor, transferring its mechanical energy to the generator, creating the power we use in our homes every day. Now let's take a look at the pros. Windmills generate electricity, do not use fossil fuels, release no harmful emissions, and only use a small fraction of the land area. They're cheap, self-sufficient, and have a quick installation in months. They create jobs and provide income for owners. They're convenient in power failures, and we can't forget wind is a never-ending resource. On the other hand, cons include a few complaints about noise. The windmills can be damaged in bad weather. Wind isn't always available, and they're sometimes fatal to some unlucky birds. As you can see, the pros outweigh the cons. Windmills are the alternative energy source of the future. In one small town in Michigan, the community and schools have taken a big step and installed their own windmills for energy.
I think that was the educational factor that prompted me to write grants for wind, is to showcase to our students that we can harness the power of the wind and turn it into electricity with no emissions.
Here in Pigeon, Michigan, the district is already one step ahead of the state. Not only are they using wind energy to power the schools, but the curriculum is designed to educate students about the importance of energy conservation. While the windmills outside are powering the building, the teachers inside Laker Junior High School are powering the minds of the students in the classrooms.
We are using so much electricity, and we don't think about the things that we're using. They're not on, or they're not supposed to be on. But I hope you find something new today.
Examples like these show that educating students about the unknown facts of energy conservation is at the top of the school's to-do list.
And our pre-engineering curriculum basically revolves around renewable energy. We do add some other things like robotics and forensic medicine, actually, but we're tying in a lot of renewable energy. Students make their own wind turbines, and they do their own competitions for blade design.
Laker Junior High School is also looking ahead and preparing their students for the future.
I think we should start learning how they work a little bit more deeper into the subject. That way, when we get older, we can help power them and find even more useful ways more efficient ways to get them to work.
The success of this one school project has turned into a community effort. Over 35 windmills have been installed throughout the area, and the number continues to grow.
In this particular wind farm on this side of Huron County, we have nearly a 100% positive reaction to having this wind farm here. This is just a perfect opportunity, as was shown at Laker schools, to not only house and showcase the actual items in operation, but to use the educational benefits of telling others and communicating the good that's in renewable energy.
People often talk of the domino effect, how somebody starts something and then it kind of has a domino effect, and I think we were the first domino to go over.
And hopefully the dominoes keep falling as the world gets on board and discovers the endless benefits of wind energy. Kelly Rowe, DTV News.
Man, those windmills are powerful. Can you just imagine if everyone had one in their home?
Yeah, come on, man.
These guys never let me have any fun.
We've taken a look at all the types of alternative energy and how they're transforming our landscape, but they also offer promise of a different kind. For our next stop, we'll take a look at the effects, economically and politically.
The benefit of saving power can not only affect our natural environment, but much more. Jeff Perry took a look at what saving power can do for our economy.
Michigan is in economic turmoil. Big companies like GM and Chrysler have declared bankruptcy, and many suppliers have followed their steps. Here in Lansing, at the state capitol, government officials are not only looking for jobs, but they're counting on them as well. In her last State of the State address, Granholm talks about a silver lining in Michigan, and that is renewable energy.
You'll see a region from Holland to Muskegon gaining new life from $1 billion in advanced battery manufacturing investments, creating 5,000 jobs. These aren't today's batteries that start your car in the morning. They're the critical components of the electric vehicles that the automakers are rushing to bring to market.
One example is the new Chevy Volt that will be manufactured here in Michigan.
The new Michigan, of course, is all about economic diversification, but some of the most important transformations are happening inside the auto industry. So anyone who thinks the automakers can't change should stay on board for this stop at General Motors' Detroit-Hamtramck assembly plant, where later this year, the first mass-produced Chevy Volt will roll off the assembly line.
Amy Butler from the Department of Energy thinks the governor is on the right track when dealing with the clean energy economy.
There's a number of different ways that the clean energy economy contributes to our economic revitalization and transition. One is through the manufacturing of components, manufacturing of energy efficiency tools and measures, manufacturing of renewable energy components and renewable energy systems. And this is an area that Michigan builds off these assets of our great research and development universities and is able to commercialize and then manufacture these tools at scale.
On our way back to Lansing, our last stop is in Eaton Rapids, home to Dowding Machining. It's an auto supplier manufacturing parts for the emerging wind turbine industry. Dowding manufactures turbine parts that are better, cheaper, lighter, and more reliable than the competition.
Another example of Dowding Machining is just 14 miles east of DTV Studios, where Lapeer Industries is changing from weapons of war to wind turbine parts. The company specialized in military vehicles, but they have recently diversified in manufacturing in the wind industry. Lapeer Industries manufactures the components that go into the top of the tower that holds the engine and many other parts in place while the turbine spins. Grant Holmes made plans for wind energy program in 2010.
So, in the year ahead, we're going to focus our economic development efforts on the wind energy industry to give Michigan the competitive advantage that it's having today in the battery and the solar sector.
But Granholm also states that this is just the start of the next few years to make clean energy our only energy.
I want to be really clear. I didn't ask these businesses here to convince you that we've already arrived at the new Michigan, because we have not.
It's clear that Michigan has the potential for renewable energy in the economy, but is it too little too late, or will it save Michigan? Jeff Perry, DTV News.
Remember, renewable energy won't work unless we first learn to reduce our energy consumption. And speaking of reducing, our next story will show you another way to save lots of energy.
For our next location, we'll find out how and where all this can happen at a recycling plant.
Reduce, reuse, and recycle. You've heard it before, and we'll find out how it works. Recycling not only helps the environment, but it saves energy too. Chris Wendell has more.
As people, we are consumers. Every year we dispose of millions of pounds of material, but we have a choice. This material could end up in a landfill like this, or we could take it to a recycling center to be properly disposed of.
Recycling has grown rapidly over the years. There has been facilities emerging all over the nation, and as energy and resources become harder to come by and the environment is at the top of the agenda, recycling is even more important. First step to recycling is to buy products that can be recycled. Just look for the recycling symbol. It's pretty easy to find. It is also a good idea to know what materials your local recycling centers accept. This should guide you in the decision-making process. The next step is to buy products that are already made from material that has been recycled. More and more products are using recycled materials to make their products and packaging. Once again, a quick glance at the label can let you know if it's made from recycled materials. Once you are finished with a product, properly dispose of it at a nearby collection center like this or drop it in your curbside recycling box. The majority of our waste come from consumer goods, which are primarily made of recyclable material. So as consumers, we have to make the choice whether to throw your bottle in the recycling bin or the garbage. Once it is broken down, it is made into new products and then sold back to the suppliers to be once more bought by the consumers. By recycling, we create one giant circle instead of wasting our natural resources. And the energy we save by recycling is tremendous. Recycling one aluminum can uses 90% less energy than making one from raw material. By making paper from paper, you use 64% less energy. It is better for the environment and energy conservation to use material that already exists rather than creating new material. Chris Wendell, DTV News.
The amount of energy that can be saved by recycling is incredible, and it's so easy to do. So take the time to recycle. Now we're going to give you some more helpful tips.
Hello, I'm Juan McNeely, and I'm bringing you your last set of energy tips for Operation Energy. Unplug phones, iPods, and battery chargers when they're not in use. Before leaving for school, turn off your TVs and computers. While turning those off, turn off your computer speakers, printers, DVD players, cable boxes, and other attachment devices. And then, last, remind your teachers, staff members, friends, and everyone to get involved, because if everyone's working for the same goal, we can get a lot further. I'm Juan McNeely, and that wraps up your energy tips.
At our final stop, we'll see how ordinary people are trying their own hand at conserving energy in the community.
Conserving energy is something the community can take part in, but it's not as hard as you think. Samantha Hannum looks at how the community is saving energy and using renewable energy right here in our community.
As we have entered into the new decade, the times have called for some changes, which is what community members have begun to do by transitioning from a life full of fossil fuels to a life powered by solar energy. John Malkinson from J&J Services has been installing solar panels in the community since 1982, and he says people think solar power can't work in a cold, cloudy state like Michigan, but that is not the case.
Well, a lot of them don't even talk to me in the first place because they don't believe that solar works in Michigan. And I remind people that, if you go to the store, go shopping somewhere in the winter, when it's really cold out but it's a sunny day, you come back to your car and it's toasty in there. That's an example of solar heating. And so you can capture that and bring it into the house through the equipment that we have available.
John not only preaches the value of renewable energy, he also walks the walk. His house is equipped with solar air panels.
What I have up there is an air panel, an air heating panel. It hasn't kicked the furnace on. The furnace is there as a backup, but it's not what's doing the job today. And that gives me a lot of pleasure.
And one of the cheapest solar inventions.
Another thing that a lot of people don't use anymore that they used to is a solar clothes dryer. And I'm using my solar clothes dryer today.
One of John's most satisfied clients is one of Davison's own teachers, Michelle McKinnon. John installed a solar water heater in her home a few years ago.
We've had this for about 4 years. We've probably saved half of our heating with our gas bill, which is quite a bit. It heats our hot water heater. And so that allows us then to use it without using electricity. So I would highly recommend anybody to get a solar panel.
The increasing popularity of solar panels has required more individuals to jumpstart their career in a renewable energy resource field.
They're retraining. They're all adults, like from maybe 20 to 60 years old. A lot of them 30s and 40s, and they're getting ready for a new career.
In Port Huron, Michigan, John teaches students about renewable energy sources at the St. Clair Community College in order to instruct them for their future career.
Right now we are learning how to design energy systems such as domestic hot water, solar voltaic, you'll see the tower outside, wind turbines, how to design them from what a customer needs for usage, and go from there, build a whole system.
Within the classroom, students have different visual aids to help them learn more about the technology and the renewable energy sources that they will be constructing in future business endeavors.
We have to go out online, do research for the different components. I think this is a good field to get into. It's going to take a few more years for things to really start getting going. It would be helpful if we could get some more tax incentives from the state level as well as the federal level to get people to invest in alternative energy systems.
More and more homes are turning to renewable energy sources right here in our community. And as the word spreads and the government allows incentives to allow these products to be installed, it becomes more popular and eventually the norm. Samantha Hannum, DTV News.
Now that we've taken this trip and found out all about energy, let's see if we can take it back home with us.
Home sweet home. Now let's head over to Aaron Snyder to see how well we did on saving energy last month at the school.
Over the past month, we've used all our knowledge and energy-saving tips to try to reduce the amount of energy we use right here in the high school, and the numbers are finally in. Last year at this time, the school used 318,677 kilowatt hours. This year, because of all of our help and cooperation, we're able to bring that number down. This month, we used 296,206 kilowatt hours. That's a difference of 22,471 kilowatt hours. That breaks down to a savings of $1,413. Now that might not seem like a lot, but over a course of a year, that adds up to almost $17,000. And $17,000, my friend, can buy you a lot of things. But here's the good news. Operation Energy is just getting started. We've only scratched the surface. We haven't been trying long enough to catch it on with everybody, and we can do better. So we've decided to ask everyone to continue cutting their energy use, both at home and at school. Encourage your classmates, teachers, and parents to get involved too and pitch in. Spread the word and remember, conserve, conserve, conserve.
We've really made a difference in the energy bill. See how much we're helping the environment.
Yeah, we just need to keep up the good work. We can save so much more energy if we keep trying.
So thanks for coming along and being a part of BTV's Operation Energy.